Hey everybody, Daren Miller with you again. Let's take a look at a rundown of the Level 3 exam. The Level 3 experience is unlike anything you've ever done in the CFA program before. So we're going to take some time to show you where the highest concentration of weights are going to be associated with this exam. We're also going to show you what the structure of the exam looks like, both the notoriously challenging morning part of the exam as well as the afternoon item sets. Now let's get rolling and see what we've got in store for you. So first of all, let's take a look at the weights. Now, I've put on here the weights for all three levels, level 1, level 2, and level 3. And if we take a look at what's not going to be tested at level 3. So if we can scratch out quantitative methods, that's gone. Zero weight associated with quants. Financial reporting and analysis, FRA, that's gone at level 3. Corporate finance, that's also gone. No weight associated with those. Those are level 2 type valuation concerns, and of course at level 3 is the portfolio management level. This is where you've got to think like a portfolio manager on the buy side. And of course that's where I spent 5 years of my career before teaching the CFA program, and that's the mindset I'm going to help you to build. Now, speaking of portfolio management, take a look at that high weight. There's no single concentration of a topic with such a high weight anywhere in the CFA exam. 40 to 55%, almost half of the exam dedicated to one topic area. So we're going to show you in all the various different lessons that we've got in store for you how we're going to finesse that a little bit and make it seem, obviously, that there are readings where we can break down that weight into something a little bit more meaningful. Because right now, one topic area at 50% seems very intimidating. But stick with us and we'll show you that it's not. Now, if we take a rundown through the other different topic areas, let's take a look at ethics. 10 to 15% of the exam is related to this critical area, and ethics at level 3, the problems that are going to come your way are going to be in the context of portfolio management issues. So we'll take a look at those lessons at a little later stage and get into the nitty-gritty of those. Economics is back again, 5 to 15% of the exam. So one of the highest potential weights of economics at all three levels. So we're going to explore the two readings that make up economics at level 3 and take a look at the practical considerations that the portfolio manager needs to consider with respect to economic issues. We've got our asset classes. Equity investments, 5 to 15%. The great news here at level 3, equity is probably the easiest it's been at all three levels. You're going to get a little bit of a break here at level 3 because there's only one reading, a relatively easy one to get for that particular asset class. Now, that was the good news. The bad news, fixed income, 10 to 20%. Fixed income consists of three very challenging readings at level 3. It is a must-pass topic. Any of your previous weaknesses in fixed income at level 2 and level 1 will be revealed here at level 3. But don't worry, we've got comprehensive, extremely well-detailed lessons that I'll be going over when we get into that topic area that will help you ace the exam. Derivatives. Many candidates despise derivatives. We're going to be working with you because there's so many aspects of derivatives on the level 3 exam. You need to be very comfortable and confident with those come exam day. And again, we're going to work with you every step of the way where derivatives appear multiple times across the level 3 exam. Alternative investments, a very easy topic at level 3 compared to level 2. One reading related to alternative investments, relatively straightforward reading to work with. So that is where the various different weights will be with the exam. Again, a very different type of setup as it relates to this incredibly high weight related to portfolio management, that mindset that's so critical to get into to be successful at level 3. Now, let's take a look at the exam itself. So we have the morning session of the exam and the afternoon session of the exam. And like the previous levels, you've got 3 hours to do the morning session of the exam. That's 180 minutes to complete. With respect to the morning session of the exam, this is the unique part to the CFA. This is the unique part to the CFA program. This is where I have spent almost 10 years of my professional teaching career helping people all around the world to be proficient at. So the CFA Institute has an official title for this part of the morning session of the exam, or I should say for the entire morning session of the exam. They refer to it as constructed response or essay. Now, essay has a strong meaning associated with that word. People think we're dealing with very formal types of responses, much like writing essays at university. Nothing could be further from the truth. Here at Wiley, we're not going to call it essay at all. I don't want you to get that message in your mind. Here at Wiley, we call it something entirely different compared to the rest of the market. We're going to refer to them as short answer questions. And I'm going to show you how we're going to go about tackling those short answer questions throughout your entire experience with us across all of the lessons for level 3. Now, with respect to minutes per question, this is unique to the morning session of level 3. Unlike level 1, where we had 90 seconds per question for every multiple choice question. Unlike level 2, where we had 18 minutes per item set, at level 3, we don't know exactly how many minutes we're going to spend on each question. Let me show you next what a morning session exam would look like. So notice here with respect to this particular exam. So this isn't a past actual exam. This actually is a screenshot of one of our mock exams that we've got in store for you when you complete your studies. So take a look at this. 11 questions on the exam. And the CFA Institute has stated that there could be as few as 9 questions on the exam or as many as 15. So straight away we're dealing with uncertainty on the morning session about how it actually will look. How many questions are there? And more uncertainty. Take a look at this over here. The number of minutes on the exam for each question. They are variable now. So if you take a look at this, the way that it's structured, some questions have a low value associated with them. You need to spend 12 minutes on these particular questions, and there's some questions where you need to spend a little bit more time. 23 minutes. The most that we've ever spent time on a question is at level 2 at item set, where we spend 18 minutes per question. Now, of course, in some years, there could be some questions that are worth higher than 23 minutes. 25, 30, 35 points. A high concentration in one particular question. That's a half an hour of the exam potentially tied up with just one question. And the number one reason that candidates tend to fail the morning session of the exam is not because of the lack of knowledge associated with the material. People fail because instead of spending 23 minutes to answer a question, they'll spend 33, 43 minutes trying to get all the points associated with it. Level 3 is a big time management issue for the morning part of the exam, and that's where we're going to work with you to be very proficient. Okay, let's take a look at a potential morning session exam question. Here we've got question 9, let's say, that we pulled from random just to show you. So with respect to this, we know that question 9 is going to be worth 21 minutes. We know with respect to this as well that this is going to be dealing with an institutional investor because we're dealing with a bank. Now, on the real exam, there's going to be many more items that's going to be provided to you. So there will be an Exhibit 1. There's going to be a balance sheet of this bank. We're also going to have management disclosures associated with the footnotes to the financial statements for you. Again, we don't have to know about FRA specifically at level 3. We just need to know that these two pieces will end up being here. So with respect to this question, they're going to provide us with some guidance in terms of what they're looking for. You're in your examination booklet on a particular page related to question number 9. We will have this. So describe changes to the composition of the balance sheet. So we know that the balance sheet is going to be there. And notice as well, we've got another word as well in boldface. Explain whether the change is consistent with the management view on interest rates. So clearly there's a discussion somewhere within the case about the direction of interest rates, what's happening to the balance sheet, and what we think obviously is happening to this term called the leverage adjusted duration gap, which is a specialist term that we look at level 3. Also, if we take a look at the way in which this question is structured, look at this very important caveat here. Note, no calculations are required. So clearly they're not expecting any calculations. They simply just want you to be able to describe, and they simply just want you to explain. Had they wanted you to calculate something, they would have said, calculate. That would have been what we call a command word associated with the level 3 exam. But notice we don't have calculate, so I'm going to get rid of it here and just focus on these 2 key words. Now, this is definitely unique to the level 3 exam. Notice these blank pages. The examination booklet for the morning session of the exam mainly consists of blank pages. And for this question number 9, there's at least 5 or 6 blank pages that are given to you. Here I'm only showing you 2. So the answer to question 9 for these type of short answer questions, you will answer them on a page that looks like this. Now, if we take a look again at what the question stated, so describe how changes the composition of the balance sheet and explain whether this change is consistent. So many people, with respect to not having too much practice with these types of questions and thinking that they are essay questions, they'll start out with something like this. It is my belief that the duration adjusted gap will increase. Now, there's a lot of wasted words in here, for example. Remember, we don't have to structure this like a real essay, for example. So I'll be showing you throughout that we're not going to do something like this. This is not an optimal or an efficient way to be able to handle these types of questions on the exam. The way that I'm going to teach you, or the way that I'm going to recommend that you handle these types of questions, is that we want to label this. We want to provide an answer for question A. And what we want to be able to do is use a bullet point. Every single time we're going to say something to the graders. Remember, these exams go back to Charlottesville, Virginia, where they are graded by volunteer CFA charter holders. I did that for 2 years. When you complete your CFA designation, perhaps that's something that you want to do, to volunteer. But nonetheless, with respect to what we're dealing with now, we want to write here that we think that the duration gap may have decreased. And so this is going to be perfectly adequate for this. The graders, we would expect them to know what a down arrow looks like, for example. And we're just straight and direct to the point in terms of what they're going to be looking for. One of the things I'm going to teach you is that less handwriting will translate into more points for you on the exam. So the second part of the question, because we're going to be flipping back and forth through the examination booklet to remind ourselves of what we need to do. So explain whether this change is consistent with management's views on interest rates. So clearly, with respect to this, we need to have a second point here. So we could say that it is consistent, because they're asking you for your judgment here. Is it consistent or not with respect to management's views? So we want to say that it is consistent with management's views. And of course, we're going to end up stopping there. We think obviously that they know that in the context of this question what management means. And at times my spelling is not so good. Spelling does not count, grammar does not count. What matters is getting to the heart of the matter with respect to answering this question. So what I'm going to demonstrate to you is you don't need to write very much. My concern is for most people who fail the morning session of the exam, they do not have the opportunity to complete it because they write too much. They also tend to strive for what I call CFA perfection. There is no such thing as CFA perfection, meaning they're trying to get a perfect score for every single question. We have to get into the mindset that the question is answered good enough and we need to move on to the next one. Essentially, very good time management skills, like never before in the CFA program. Now, let's take a look to see how the question will have been graded. So here at Wiley, we provide what's called a grading score. So we're presuming that this is going to be the same format that the graders will be using. So we know that this question was worth a total of 5 minutes. 5 minutes translates exactly into 5 points. So I want to see how good my answers were in order to get the 5 points that are listed here. So if I go back and take a look at the quality of my answer, so I've correctly stated that the duration gap is going to most likely decrease. That's with the down arrow that I've got. So I'm going to say that I'm going to earn 1 point for this. And I'm going to get my red pen out. That's the pen that the graders are going to be using in Charlottesville. So I've stated something that is consistent with picking up that point. I'm also going to say with respect to this that it is consistent with management's views associated with interest rates. So I've got 2 points so far. So we are going to have to take a look to see whether or not that this is going to be adequate with respect to this, because so far out of the 5 points, I've only scored 2. Now, this is a case where I probably have written too little. So there are other aspects clearly that they're looking for here with respect to this type of question. So there's going to be some sort of logic involved as well associated with building up the answers to this. So in saying that the duration gap has most likely decreased, maybe we could have written the little formula up here associated with it. The duration gap is the duration of assets minus K, which is a leverage ratio reflecting of how leveraged the liability side of the balance sheet is. So with respect to this, in order to get the other points on the exam, remember, we don't have to show any calculations, but we do have to show a better knowledge associated with this. In order to say that the duration gap overall has decreased, we would obviously have to mark on here as well that we think that the duration of the assets would have fallen and the duration of the liabilities would also have increased. And if we go back and take a look at this, we can see that we've got our additional points for those two different things as well. So the graders would come along and say, here's another point embedded in here, here's another point embedded in here. Where could I have gotten the 5th point with respect to this? The 5th point could have come in the fact that we know that there's this other aspect associated with this equation, this leverage factor here, and consistent with the case results, that would have remained constant. So we would have to have mentioned in here that K remains constant. And the graders would come along and say, aha, that is where the 5th point would have been. So we're going to show you, sometimes you're going to write too little and you're not going to get the points, just like I did here. But you know what? No big deal. I got 2 out of 5 and I'm happy with that because I'm going to continue to move on through the exam. Some questions are going to be like this. You're only going to pick up 2 points. Other questions you would have gotten the full 5. Remember, there's no such thing as CFA perfection. My job is to complete that morning session of the exam. If I've got time, I'm going to go back and fill things in. So notice, you don't need to write very much to get the full points. You don't even have to write incomplete sentences to get the full points. That's the beauty of the morning part of the exam. But it does take practice to get into that mindset. And we're going to practice with you starting from day 1 when you get into the Wiley program with us. Notice as well, there are so many blank pages. There's at least 6 or 7 blank pages associated with this particular question. You only need half of one of those pages. As I said before, most of the pages in the examination booklet are simply just blank pieces of paper that you will never, ever need. Okay, let's take a look at another type of question on the exam. So this is known as a template type of question. So again, we've got the same sort of setup as before, where there's certain case features that are provided. And again, we're not providing it here because that's going to be just take up the screen with a whole bunch of words. You will eventually see for yourself what the setup of these exams look like. Now, with respect to this next type of question, instead of getting a blank piece of paper, what you will end up getting is a template. So the template guides where your answers are going to go. And if you take a look with respect to this particular part of the exam, you can come in and depending on the cases, at least the evidence that's provided to you, you can circle higher, lower, or unchanged as your answer. That is what you do within the template. That's all that you do with respect to this particular one. And then usually with these template types of answers, if you circle something that is going to go lower, now what you need to do is to justify your answer with one reason. So if they say justify your answer with one reason, I'm going to drop one big bullet point in here. Remember, anytime I'm going to be doing a lot of what I think is going to be a lot of writing, I'm going to slow my mind down by shading in a big bullet point. And then I'm going to write my answer beside that bullet point with respect to this particular item. So you can say, we think that the risk, the ability of the bank to take risk has lowered because there's been an increase in CDO issuance. And we see that from the balance sheet. Now, that may or may not be consistent with the actual question because we don't get to see what the actual question is, but I'm just demonstrating to you how little you need to write even within the templates to score the points. So make sure that you start thinking about these strategies now. And here I'm going to shade in this little arrow here just to demonstrate that this is an up arrow. The idea is that the graders fully are expecting you to abbreviate wherever possible and to use little icons like this to indicate what you actually mean. Now, let's take a look at a part of the exam that is very familiar to most people. Most CFA candidates at level 3 do not have a problem with the afternoon session. The afternoon session is familiar, like at level 2. These are item sets. So again, we've got 180 minutes in the afternoon, so that is a total of 3 hours from 2 o'clock in the afternoon to 5 o'clock. We have what we expect would be 10 item sets in the afternoon. And then we've got 6 sub-questions or 6 multiple choice questions per item set. And of course, minutes per question is 18, a very familiar format already. And so this shows a potential breakdown with respect to questions for the afternoon item set. There, as we work specifically through the various different readings and through the lessons, we'll be highlighting for you various different topics that we think are more likely to be tested in the morning part of the exam and topics that are more likely to be tested in the afternoon session. So we'll work with you to try to have a good idea about which questions are more likely to appear where. Now, of course, we don't know that for sure. CFA Institute has never released a past afternoon session of the item set. They've only released the morning sessions. And again, here we go with respect to the very familiar vignettes that we have with respect to the item sets. You're given at least a page or two of material, and then after that you've got 6 individual questions, and you can't answer these questions in isolation. You're drawn back into the item sets as always. But remember, most people don't have a problem with item sets. If you've been successful at level 2 with item sets, you can be very successful at level 3. As a matter of fact, many candidates that I've worked with in the past tend to finish the afternoon session with plenty of time to spare. So again, The real issue at level 3 is thinking about that morning session, which is so unique and very different so far to your CFA experience, which will require a totally different mindset to be successful in. We're going to work with you to help you overcome, or at least get into that successful winning level 3 mindset for the morning part of the exam. I'm really excited about that. I can't wait.